Good morning. Hi, I'm the Reverend Dr. Laura Kim Joyner, and welcome to Birding for Life Sunrise Practice, a mindfulness practice. And we're going to be very interested in what the birds are doing today. Can you hear the crows calling up on top of those trees over there? And I don't think you can pick it up, but we've had a wild turkey off here to the southwest also calling today. It's been just really lively. You can tell the spring is on its way here, but we're still on February 18th into our ninth week of winter. Well, what's going on with the biotic community in the sky where you are? We just had a new moon yesterday, which means that it's just a sliver over there setting when the sun does. And what I understand is that the moon is going to completely obliterate Mercury in the twilight. So for us here in South Carolina, this would be about 7:30, but it's not going to be completely obliterated here. We need to be a little bit further west. So look around for it and see if there. It's called an occult. It's when the moon occults Mercury. What are the skies doing in your area? What about the birds? Well, we have, I think you can see in the background, our bluebirds have been investigating our bluebird house. They could lay as early as the end of February, maybe. So we're going to be watching them. They could have up to 3 clutches. Last year, we know at least 2 clutches that this family had. We did the Great Backyard Birding Count on the weekend. Added 2 new species, not they were common species, but we just hadn't documented them here before. And something really fun that's going on. I've been seeing the red tails. Can you see where the sun is coming up over there? We've been having red tails perched there. Oh, and there's the sun. It should be at about 7:08 today, a little bit earlier. So one thing that I do is sing to the sun. Shall we do that for just a little bit? Excuse my notes. I don't always hit them right. Um, so yes, here we go. We ready? I add my breath to your breath, that our days may be long on this earth, that the days of our being may be long. That's a Zuni Pueblo prayer, adapted from Mary Gregolia. So yeah, we're singing. We're so great. I'm glad to be here, even though it's also a land of celebration and abundance. It's one of loss. The Catawba people, kind of descendants of the Mississippi Mountain culture through this area, they were here in fairly good numbers. We've got some big rivers that come through this area, and their numbers have certainly dwindled, but their culture is ever present. We have a reservation just a little bit further north of us here. So they live on in us, and also the Carolina parakeet. But unfortunately, the Carolina parakeet that used to be all through here, they are no more. They are gone, but their beauty remains with us today. So I want to celebrate and also mourn the loss of the Carolina parakeet. The last Carolina parakeet died on February 21st in 2018. So we're coming up on that anniversary. And this bird's name was Inca. So let's talk about the Carolina parakeet today. So here's a poem about the Carolina parakeet. Once you were a green flame moving through the river bottom's forest, a quickening in the sycamores, a laughter stitched in gold and ember. Carolina parakeet, you were drawn, you wore the dawn on your head, a crown of sunlit saffron, a face brushed with the last red of evening. Along the cypress swamps of Florida, the wide breathing valleys of the Mississippi River, your flocks rose like leaves startled into prayer, green thunder over the Santee River here in South Carolina. You fed on cockleburrs and thistles, turned poison into brilliance, made medicine of what others feared. Even your hunger was alchemy. But rifles answered your return when you circled the fallen, faithful beyond caution, bright loyalty mistaken for abundance. In the long hush of captivity, a single heart beat in a cage at the Cincinnati Zoo and then not. Now your forests remember you in memory, green flickers of our past, a yellow whisper in the canopy wind. The river keeps your reflection. O vanished psalm of the hardwood sky, may we learn from your silence that beauty is not inexhaustible, that belonging is a fragile covenant, that what flies together must be guarded together. Now let's just take a moment and wherever you are, and look up and look out, breathe deep, find the sun, find your heart, find the birds. Who's with you today? That is always with you. That is you. This morning we've been having chipping sparrows and song sparrows and pine warblers, American crows. I already mentioned the wild turkey that's been here today. And I can hear the far off freeway. That too, in its way, belongs. Well, what can we reflect upon the Carolina parakeet today? I'm going to mix some science with the reflection, give you a little more background to understand what happened. Inca died on February 21st in the Cincinnati Zoo in 1918. Inca had a mate, Lady Jane. They lived to be, I think it was around 30 to 35 years of age before they died. She died before he did. They set them up for breeding. That was the last captive birds. And they weren't able to produce any viable young. Birds, however, continued to be spotted in the wild after that, mostly in Florida, where the last really big populations were as late as the 20s, and some people even said in the Santee River here in South Carolina into the 1940s. So what happened to them? From what I've been able to read, they were diminishing in the 1800s as agriculture took a lot of their food space, and other things were going on too. One thing is that they were considered a pest. They were labeled a pest, as we do many animals today. For instance, here in our area, they shoot coyotes. They're a pest, but they may not shoot the bobcats and the foxes here. So yes, so they were considered a pest. They would come down and eat in the agricultural fields. And what they remarked on with these birds is that if one was injured or dead, the rest of the flock would come and come down to the bird, and then they could also be shot. And I heard that their flocks could be from 100 to 1,000, and they range from New York all the way over, some maybe as far as Nebraska and Colorado, but really big along the Mississippi River and the big rivers in the east here and in Florida. They like the swamps. They ate a lot of different foods, not just cockleburs, which were toxic. That's what the poem refers to, is that those are toxic. The seeds are toxic for us and for the animals that live with us. But they were able to eat them. And there's even one story saying that I think James Audubon remarked that if cats ate a Carolina parakeet, they would die because the flesh itself, the musculature, the tissues of the Carolina parakeet was toxic. Right. So the color of the plumage was a detriment. You heard the poem talk about all the reds and yellows and oranges and greens and probably some blues in there. They were feathers and they were adornments, wings, whole birds on ladies' hats and as brooches. I've seen pictures of that. They were also kept as pets. I don't know the extent of that. I've seen some pictures of them in captivity with people as pets. And then abruptly they were gone. I read a quote once from a woman, I don't remember her name. She said, "My grandfather was one of the last people to see the Carolina parakeet alive. I mourn." And I mourn too, because I grew up fascinated with birds and parrots were part of that. And I was always so shamed and maybe angry too that we had lost one of our native parrots here. We could also count the Puerto Rican parrot as a native here. The thick-billed parrot also ranged through here, and I've had the privilege of seeing them in New Mexico, and they're also in Arizona. But it was our biggest breeding population. They say maybe millions of these birds were here, but they're gone now. So we don't know exactly what happened. We've already talked about they lost a lot of their foods because of agricultural expansion. Then there was conflict, um, agriculture eating the crops, and that was true. We talked about the pet trade, and we also talked about adornment, killing the birds for their own adornment reasons. There may have also been the European honeybee came over, and there may have been competition for cavities because they are cavity nesters, so maybe that was a piece that came into it. And one author even said the Carolina parakeets would come in and mix with the feeding operations on farms, and that maybe they picked up a disease from the chickens, something like Newcastle's viruses, or maybe even some influenzas or some other diseases. And we know that that can be a risk. We know that there is definitely transmission between captive birds such as chickens and the wild birds. So, what happened to them? And what can we help happen into the future knowing that we lost that bird and other birds are at risk too? Parrots are the most endangered group of birds in the world. So, here is some more reflection. Somebody wrote about seeing the Carolina Parakeet statue dedicated in a national park in Florida, the big statue of a Carolina parakeet. And this person writes, the more I meditate on that moment and the surprise of finding that Carolina parakeet statue, the more I'm reminded that it is impossible to get swept up in the joy of experiencing nature and counting the variety of all the birds alive on the planet without simultaneously acknowledging the weight of the absence of those who no longer with us. That's birding for life. We bird for life. We're counting them. We're paying attention to their behavior. We're focusing on who they are so that we know them. And we also know who's not here or who's here in less numbers. The monument roars. It serves as a reminder that we are on sacred ground. The monument being the Carolina Parakeet statue. So we don't know. We don't know what happened. We can make some guesses. But what we do know is that some of these very same threats are present in our birds and our parrots today. That we have constructed a gilded cage that traps all of us. Isn't it time to break the cage door? Well, let's just take a moment. What birds do you have in your area? I just heard a northern cardinal calling over there. So it's a day, it's a little cool, it's a little windy, certainly overcast, but we have our birds around us today, and we are grateful for them. So what is our practice for the day? How we can connect to nature? Let's do multi-species intelligence. There's a lot more of this online, but basically what it's asking, what are other species or a particular individual feeling and needing? Put ourselves into their feathers, into their wings, into their hooves, into the scales. What are they feeling and needing? What is their subjective experience? What are their motivations and what are their needs? What are they seeking to flourish and to reproduce? So what does a Carolina parakeet feel? Imagine them. We're a little bit up into the mountains, but we do have some rivers here, so they could have easily been in this area. Um, Hundreds of them perhaps together, calling to each other. I work with the sun parakeet in Guyana in South America, and they say that's one of the closest relatives to the Carolina parakeet. And they're also very similarly colored. And they don't shut up. They're always talking to each other, conversing, sharing information. We don't see them in hundreds anymore. They used to be in hundreds in Guyana time as well, the sun parakeet. So what are they feeling and needing? What are they telling each other? Are they hungry? Are they sociable? Are they calling out each other's names? And when you hear them and you place yourself into the sun parakeet, whose mate had just been shot, whose children had just been taken from a nest to be pets. When you were the last sun parakeet, or the last Carolina parakeet alive, what were you feeling and needing? And being in that space, what requests is the Carolina parakeet making of you? Or what requests do you have of yourself? What might that be? For my own part, we here at One Earth Retreat Center, we also call it Parakeet Perch. We are developing the Parakeet Way, the Carolina Parakeet Way. It's a walk around here where we have 14 stations, like the Stations of the Cross, where we go through abundance and beauty and loss and grief and mourning and back to beauty and to action. So this is the request that I hear from the story of the Carolina parakeet. I would love to hear yours. So our question for the day, can humans avoid extinction? Some people say millions of species have gone extinct, maybe more over the period of time. We've so much have been lost that humans had nothing to do with it. Should we avoid it? Can we avoid it? Do we have the capacity to avoid ecosystem and earth collapse, loss of biodiversity? Do you think we can do something about it? Or we should at least try? And why should we? Is it just because we need parakeets to drop seeds and be farmers of the forest? Or is it because of just who they are? What do you love so deeply that you wish to save them? What are you doing to love more deeply so you can both save and savor the world? Now the clouds sure are moving fast. They say it's not going to rain today. So what are we going to do with our lives? Knowing this extinction of biodiversity and beauty and amazing things and wonder in our lives. Maybe we remember what Mary Oliver, a poet, said in Blackwater Woods. In this life, we must be able to do three things. To love what is mortal. Hold it against your bones as if your life depended on it. And when the time comes, let it go. Let it go. And I would say, don't let love go. Maybe let the end results go. But let us not give up. Let's not let the cause of living a wonderful life for ourselves and for all on this planet slip into the darkness, slip into the silence.